I was changing my name. I'm Delilah, and I have Ari, who's 11 and are now 12, and Jada, who's 8, and they're both violin players.
Great.
Oh, Liz Ephraimson.
Hi.
Yeah, I never get her last name right.
Hi, Liz. We're just going around introducing ourselves. Larry is going to introduce himself.
Oh, hey, Larry Powell here. Jack is a violin student, and he is on his last song in book 2, and hopefully we're going to pass it tomorrow, Sarah. Yeah, but so he's been part of the Suzuki program for a couple of years now.
Great. That sounds fantastic. Very good. All right. Well, glad you could join us, Miss Liz. We'll go ahead and have Sean, would you like to start and just share kind of any inspirations you've had about the Suzuki method or what it's meant to your student and family? Is anything?
Sure. So our entry to harp, it's a little bit fairy tale-ish, right? Our daughter was 5. We're visiting my brother in Chicago. My niece was playing harp, and our 5-year-old plastered herself to the harp for the weekend. And I mean, we had to pry her away at the end of the weekend to come back to Indianapolis. And she left and she said, I want to learn harp. And we said, okay, that's a bit unusual. Let's do piano first and get a foundation, and we'll see what we can find in Indianapolis. And last summer I started looking into things more seriously. We live just around the corner from St. Joan. So I don't know how many years we've driven past the ISA building, but sure enough, they offer harp. And yeah, I mean, yeah, to have a niche instrument that is that close to home after, and I mean, you know, it had been 4 years and my daughter, or 3 years, and my daughter was still saying, I want to learn harp. When can I learn harp? So, you know, we're probably halfway through book 1, and I think, you know, there's probably it's a combination of the method and the teacher, right? So the method, the way that the book drills in just muscle memory and repetition, and I can't speak to other string instruments because I'm a brass player, but I see the value of that with Claire, because she wants to move on and she doesn't want to, but she's not ready, and so she needs the time and the practice with closing her, you know, her hands and keeping the thumbs high and keeping the elbows in a proper place. And the way that the first few songs kind of build that in, I think is really valuable. Then the other thing, so actually I'm going to say there's 3 things, right? 1 is the method from the book, 2 is the teacher, and then 3 is what being involved with the ISA has opened up for us. So the teacher, I can't say enough good stuff about Stephanie, and she's been really good with Claire, who is, you know, wants to learn and sometimes thinks she's better than she really is. And Stephanie does a great job of guiding her through both the desire to take on things that she might not be ready for, and also bringing her back to being grounded in the technique and learning those things. And so they mix up. There's repertoire stuff from the book, and then there's, hey Claire, what else do you want to work on? And so she'll pick songs and she works most of them she learns by ear, and Stephanie's been really great about you know, guiding her and coaching her through that. So that's number 2 is the teacher, right? And then number 3, when everything went virtual in March, one of the dads in the harp studio put together, or helped Stephanie put together, a virtual harp ensemble. So he did the click track and everybody played along, and then he made the video. That opened up the world of virtual ensembles, which I had never really paid attention to before. Started talking to my siblings about it. One thing led to another. We pulled together for my dad's birthday in July, a virtual ensemble for two of my siblings who also play instruments, plus my three kids and my two nieces and my nephew on blowing a water bottle and banging sticks. And we're scattered Florida, Illinois, Indiana, Colorado, harp, cello, trombone, French horn. I mean, these are not portable instruments that you can just throw in your luggage when you get together as a family. So we did an arrangement of Amazing Grace that a friend of mine had put together, and we put that up on YouTube for my dad as a birthday present. And that was one of the newsletters. I think there was a screenshot of that, which, doing that for Claire a year into harp, being able to play that was impressive. But it came from the foundation of the technique that sometimes she likes and sometimes she doesn't, and the guidance of Stephanie, and the exposure from the harp ensemble that was kind of a pivot when the original spring concert had to get canceled.
I'll unmute myself. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm so glad that you shared about your family ensemble, because that was really neat to see Claire use her, all of her skills that she learned and bring joy to your family and to lots of other people. So that's great. Thank you so much. Delilah, would you like to share next?
Yes, I will kind of follow Sean's format and just talk about how the girls came to violin, and that was, we were fortunate in their early education in preschool to be in a preschool that had a fabulous music program they could start at the age of 3. I'm pretty sure it would have been at early as 3, and just carry on campus with lessons throughout the school year. And the teacher there, the instructor, who was a part of the strings program, they primarily focused on violin there. So my oldest daughter was, of course, the first to be introduced, and it was really through her friend who was in the same preschool class, best friend, and she wanted to be with him, when he went to violin, and she wanted to try it also. So we started violin so she could have the same interests as James. And from there, we really found a place for not only her, but for me to connect with her and to have, through Suzuki Method, a way for both of us to have that shared time together to work as a team for her early lessons, because those were, of course, the most vigorous as far as being a parent, was during the early time of learning to hold a pencil box under her neck. And even that, start was really important, and understanding the importance of doing those things early on. And then holding a fuzz ball in place and balancing and getting to the point of playing a song. And just to watch all of that together and do that together was really amazing for both of us. So of course, I wanted her sister to have the same experience. So she started when she was able to, the age that she could attend also. So then fast forward, we moved to Indianapolis about 2 years ago. And I, just like we were looking for a home to live in, looking for schools to attend, I was also looking for where I could further their Suzuki violin. So in Indianapolis, we were fortunate to find the Indianapolis Suzuki Academy through, various searches, and just once we, of course, talked to others, but once we went there, really liked the way it was designed to basically centered around Suzuki, of course, because there were other violin lessons available, but they were not Suzuki based, but just how much outside time they had other than the private lessons to also be a part of a community. That's what we were looking for. That's kind of where we were before we were part of a community of lessons and recitals and play-ins and workshops, and just being able to have access to that here, as we did in our previous city, was what we were most excited about when we found Indianapolis Suzuki Academy. And of course, now they're a little bit older, and just being able to see them today, of course, takes some time to get into a rhythm, of course, when you stop practicing for a little, but we got back into a rhythm, and I think they're working with Mrs. Walls as their violin teacher. We've really all found a way to click together, and I would say just like those early days, the practices are still so important, and I still feel like, even though I want to kind of step out, I see how important it is and how much the parental involvement is still an opportunity for me. So we are all still together as a team, and I just love to see how they, the violin helps them to learn practice and how important it is to practice, and that skill goes into homework, it goes into studying for tests, and just having that discipline to do that from such a young age prepares them far beyond violin with the skills they learn from just the discipline and muscle memory and memorizing, and very well prepares them for school. So I really feel the value, and maybe they won't become first string violinists or whatever, but I think it's really important for them to have the skills they're learning. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you so much. Okay, Larry.
Okay, so my first experience with Suzuki was I married a Suzuki student. Now, mind you, she was 22 at the time. We're not talking. But what I noticed as I got to know, my wife is a professional violinist, and what I noticed is she was fearless. There was joy in everything that she played. And even though I might not have recognized the joy right at the time, I noticed that much later on, because as our youngest, Jack, started taking violin lessons, I was bringing him to lessons, both private, or the individual lesson and the group. And what I noticed was, I think well, let me back up one second. I teach at the college level. So what I notice when a lot of students come in is that they have had really lackluster fundamentals. They're lacking so many things that that would help them succeed. And what I noticed right away with Suzuki was, those are the foundations, those are the fundamentals that I wish all of those students coming into college would have. So, I started really paying attention to what was going on. And Suzuki, the approach there is sound before sight, where it's really like learning a language the way you should learn a language. It's not trying to learn to read music and play an instrument at the same time. There's real care in the process that goes into, yes, knowing how to hold the instrument, but also teaching them how to listen and how to just be comfortable in what they're doing. And I watched Jack, who, Sarah, is as quiet as a church mouse, right? But when he plays, and when you should see him practice at home, but there's already that joy, this enjoyment of what he's doing. And this, when I say it's time to practice, he goes, he picks up his violin, and we do it. There's hesitation sometimes, right? But the thing that I've really appreciated about Suzuki, and it's a reason that I'm going to be Suzuki trained in trumpet, hopefully this coming June. There's actually Suzuki training now for all the brass instruments. But what I appreciate is that you get access to kids at the right age to really instill in them this appreciation for music, this love. And I think that's really kind of what Suzuki is. It's about this affect this love for music and love for learning, right? And these kids are like sponges. And when you, whatever instrument you put in it, whether it's a trumpet or a harp or a violin or whatever, you know, that just happens to be their voice. And it's really exciting to see how they progress. You know, I've watched Jack go from, what was the first thing they did? It was holding the bow. I can't remember right.
The rocket song or something.
Right, right. And to watch how now I mean, everything is just so natural, so comfortable. And the more I've read about Suzuki, and the more I watch master teachers like Sarah Beck do her thing, it's just like, okay, this is it. Every kid who wants to learn music should go through this kind of program. So it's just been something I've become very interested in learning myself, and excited about that my kids, Jack at least, is involved in this.
That's great. Thank you. Well, and I'm humbled. I don't know that I would call myself a master teacher, but I honestly think if as a teacher, you grasp a hold of the core components of the method, and once they just become natural at applying them, it just works. And you don't have to be necessarily the master, but the method works, and you can just see it time after time. And it gives you the chance to hone in on what does that individual child need, or what is that individual child's personality or tendencies, because all of these other things are going to work so, without fail, that you can really hone in on each child. So, the other thing, Delilah, I was one of the comments that you made that I think is really special about the Suzuki program is, as a parent, sometimes it's easy to let life get so busy that you just never stop. You just go from thing to thing right? All of our lives, we have children and jobs and activities. And I have come to cherish the scheduled lesson and the scheduled group class, because it forces our family to stop, and it forces me, not that I don't want to, but it carves out that one-on-one time with my child, with each of my kids. And especially if you have 2 kids or 3 kids or more kids than that, it's hard to carve out one-on-one time on a regular basis with your kids. And I have just come to cherish sitting in their lesson and watching just them be who they are and develop. And that's something that's really special that a lot of other activities, I drop them off of soccer and I don't really interact with them, So when you said that you enjoyed those practice moments, even though there are some that are frustrating or there are arguments, let's be real. So. Did anybody else have any thoughts on any of the other comments that people made, or things that made you think when somebody else was talking?
Am I on?
Yep, we can.
Okay. Well, I'm just struck how you guys, the parents, feel almost like they're at home at the academy. So, I mean, you're very comfortable with the teacher. So to me, it's more, it's a feeling of, oh, they're just not taking music lessons, but there's a relationship with the teacher, and there's a relationship with the academy. And I think there's some people that don't want that. And I was just talking to a teacher the other day who, they kind of described the group lesson and the, practicing and the listening and all that. And the person said, no, I just want them to learn how to play cello in 7th grade. And they didn't want all that other stuff. But the people that we attract, like you 3 and many other children, are the ones that are, want that family situation and want a more in-depth, and like Larry said, getting really good root habits and learning to play without, tension. And so, but it is a commitment. It is. As we all know.
Thank you. Well, one other thing I thought we could talk about briefly is listening, because that really is that really is a component that's unique to Suzuki in many ways. Or maybe perhaps we just apply it and activate it in a unique manner. But I didn't know if any of you had any stories about listening or the power of listening. And I'll share a couple if you want to have a moment to think about. But one moment that struck me once was I had a student, and she had started in a public school program and then came to me as like a 6th grader who had started in a public school program. And I kind of gently took her back through some of the Suzuki repertoire. And then she had made it up. She was working on the last piece in book 3, which in book 3, you're working on, you know, it was like Bach. So, you know, like a 2-page Bach piece. It was a significant piece. And she really had been like going slowly through the pieces, really like working really arduously to get through these pieces. She came back in like 2 weeks. She had learned this entire, it was the Bhagavat in D major. It's this entire complicated piece. And I was like, how in the world did you learn this so quickly? Like memorized all the bowings, dynamics, articulations. And she's like, well, I heard it every week in group class last year when the group, I hadn't played it in group class, but every week I heard that piece 2 or 3 times in the group class. And I was like, oh my gosh. Like, and from that point on, I mean, she was slowly becoming a believer in the listening, but from that point on, she's a believer in the listening. And because it just like, it makes it easy for the child. So that was one of my stories. I don't know if you all have had other experiences with listening and seeing different moments in your child when you have done more listening. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll speak to that because Jenny downloaded the Suzuki, what was it that you downloaded, all the songs? Oh, she's got her earplugs in. But she downloaded all those. And so on walks, we would go and we'd play those and Jack would listen to those. And, you know, we would listen way ahead. He might be at the beginning of one book, but we'd listen way ahead. And by the time you get to those songs, it was already there. And because he's been learning how to get around on the violin and he's been using his ears, all of a sudden it's easier to put that to make it practical, put all those notes under his fingers. And like last night, we're working on the Boccherini, and we get to another section that he's not even worked on yet, but because he's heard it so many times, he just picked it out and started playing it. And I'm like, okay, that just doesn't happen overnight. It's a skill that you have to, and I think that's one of the great things about the Suzuki program is you're taught to listen from the very beginning. Listen verbally to the instructions, but then also the call and response with the teacher, you know, the teacher playing and the student playing. And it just teaches them to use their ears.
And just developing those skills little by little over time, right? You know, when I think back, students learning their pieces by ear from listening in the very beginning, then they just develop those memory muscle, you know, both muscle memory in their fingers and then also the ability to memorize large chunks of information. And just over the summer, Nolan was working on, because it's just been quarantine and he's been probably practicing more and listening more, the Vivaldi double cello concerto. I mean, it's like 4 pages music. It's super complicated. And one day we just shut the book and he played all 4 I mean, bowings, all the notes, all the rhythms, all the rest. He played. I was like, how do you memorize it? He's like, he doesn't even know. He's just like, I just do. Like, and for me to do that as not having grown up as a Suzuki student, totally different like style of work and practice to do that. But it's just like, I just did it. I'm like, what? So
Wow.
you know, it just makes it really easy for him. So
Makes it easy for you too.
I know, right? Right. So
May I say one more thing?
sure, please.
Okay, just to go off something Liz said about choosing how you want your child to learn. And I think if more people knew about Suzuki and that they could start their children earlier, right? And they would see the value, not just in that their son or daughter is learning an instrument, but to be part of a community and to really learn. I mean, the process going through 7th and 8th grade band is so slow and tedious. you know, and it's hard to achieve success or recognize success early on because it's so slow, but you recognize success very early on in Suzuki. Both the parent, the teacher, and the student see that. And I think there's real value. And if everybody could see that, you know, ISA would have to move into Lucas Oil, right? Because you wouldn't have enough room for everybody.
But game on.
Right?
Just to echo what Larry just said, I absolutely agree. I have so many friends that are interested in music lessons for their children, and then I'll talk about Suzuki and how wonderful it is, and I get the response of, well, I just need something where I can drop them off, and then they can go to lessons, and then I can pick them up. And I don't want to supervise practices. I don't want to do any of this. I just want to drop them off and pick them up, and then 2 years later they'll know the piano. And I don't articulate it well because you'd have more people signing up, but I really wish you could kind of capture that in a bottle and say, it's the process, guys. You're missing the whole joy of it if it's just drop off, learn it, be done. You just miss all of the good stuff in the middle. But well, I've got to find a better way to articulate that over time.
That's a really important point, because it is not easy, but it is worth it. And I think that's, I think the more we can tell our individual stories, the more we can get our students out playing once the pandemic is over, playing in the public, and just telling those stories of those little moments that make it worth it. I think that's where the magic happens. So great.
Yes, and as they get older, more involved in other things in school, friends, clubs, there are all these things kind of tugging, you know, them from the preschool days when that was their primary activity. And that's what we worked on together. And then to now where they're in a lot of competing priorities for themselves even. It's always been just from having that early inclusion into Suzuki, just part of our life now, that practice violin, do homework, practice violin. It's the same sentence, you know? And now not so much, there's not a lot of talking back. But, you know, so because it's just the sixth grader, definitely it's part of her life now. She just knows, okay, I'll do it. You know, that's what I do. And it's something that once she starts, like you said, I've heard so much about the joy and the enjoyment of doing it. And she is such a busy person, you know, just likes to do a lot of things at one time. And it's just so nice to see the violin just kind of take her into, you know, everything is working together at one time. She's not distracted. The body is being involved. The mind is involved. She's settled, calm. I think that is a good thing for busy children these days.
That's really important, and that's so neat that you recognize that in her, and that you can give that gift to her as the commitment that you've made as a family. So, well, I so value hearing from you all, and I'm so thankful that you all are in the community of our academy, and just people like you and your families are what makes it really special to be part of this Suzuki community. And I hope we can continue to grow it. And thank you for your time and for your thoughts. And I appreciate you guys. And hopefully I will see some of you maybe at the recitals or on the online, and we will see some of you guys soon. So thank you so much for your time this afternoon. All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, have a great
Bye.
day.
Thank you.